Hello and welcome to another episode of my podcast, which is called A Cuppa with Anna. Today I'm joined by Matt, and Matt is he's really challenged himself over the years with races and adventures, and I think you're here to try and encourage us to try new things and build our own
Yeah,
personal resilience today.
yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me, Anna. Really pleasure to be here.
Pleasure, thank you for coming
And
to chat to me.
yeah, no, it's good. I'm going to enjoy it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just trying to get people out and about, try something new. Whether you're good at it or not doesn't matter. Just give it a go.
Because we initially, well, we saw each other on a
Yeah.
public speaking online workshop with Nick Elston, who I interviewed the other week.
All right,
And
cool.
yeah, and I know that there was a little black book that you were flashing around, and I just sort of, yep, there it is. It's
There
flashing
it
that
is.
black book again. And I don't know, it just kind of stuck in my mind when I came away from the workshop. I thought, I need to know more about what's in that book and what you've been up to. So, first of all, just kind of, I'm curious to know what you've learned about yourself during lockdown and how that's challenged you.
Yeah, for me, it's weird. I've kind of actually enjoyed it, but not at the same time. In a way, I quite like not having to do things as well, bizarrely. But having the restriction when I do want to do things is hard. I've got a massive list of things that I want to try and do, like my dreams, if you like. And so partly being in lockdown, obviously working with Nick, you mentioned earlier, on public speaking and trying to get that kind of plan in the pipeline. That's actually been perfect for lockdown because I was furloughed from my proper job, which actually has worked out really well to try and work on a little bit of this. But
What's your proper job, Matt?
so I've got a couple of things. I work in golf. That's my proper job. So I've worked in golf since I was 16, 17. So I live in Warwickshire, so I basically deal with a lot of the elite golf side of golf in Warwickshire, really. So coaching and the teams and whatnot. But myself and my wife have got a travel business, which since I was been furloughed, obviously I've been able to help out her with that, to try and sort out moving clients and customers and try and sort out the melee of problems that have arisen because of that, really. So yeah, so it's been a bit of a big mix. I've enjoyed it, but now I'm starting to want to get itchy feet. But obviously I've been trying to get out there for bike rides and walks and hikes whenever I can, and we've definitely seen some new places as a family where we've not really walked before that are literally 5 minutes away, which is all part of what I'm kind of trying to get, is that an adventure doesn't have to be a million miles away. It can be just out your doorstep and walk 5 minutes and you're somewhere where you've never been before, which is what it's all about.
Yeah, that's so true, isn't it? And I know sometimes, like, I mean, I live near the quay in Exeter, and it is, you're walking down there and you're like, I've never seen this in this way before. It's almost like things have become brand new, haven't they?
Yeah, big time. I mean, Stratford, where I live, Stratford upon Avon, so tourist central, really, I suppose, as part of Warwickshire. That, and yeah, there's been no one really around. But I've only actually been in the town maybe once or twice since lockdown started. But I've got a couple of apps on my phone. I'm always looking at footpaths around the place and different routes to do, different walks to do, and so we found loads of new ones and woods as well, like wildlife places we've never been to before. Amazing. Definitely want to go back there again. So it's had some benefits.
It's like being a tourist in your own town, isn't it? Because often tourists come and visit and they're, oh, we've seen this place and this place, and
Yeah,
you're thinking, I've lived here for years and I haven't seen that.
exactly. I mean, I've heard someone say something in a Zoom video that actually I thought, yeah, that's absolutely bang on. And they've said that adventure, or like a micro adventure, is going somewhere but looking closer. And I thought, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So, you know, you may have been there before, but you've not actually stopped and had a look around. And I wonder what's down there, or I wonder what's that way instead of that way. And yeah, that kind of thing is definitely worth bearing in mind.
Yeah. So your challenges, obviously, that you've done further afield, you've done quite a lot of challenges by the sounds of it. I'm
Yeah.
curious to know why challenging yourself and putting yourself out of your comfort zone is so important to you.
A few things really that kind of have happened, if you like life-defining moments, if you want to call them that. Had a few kind of things that have happened along the way, where one of them being my granddad. One of the things he said, he's passed away a few years ago now, but one of the things he used to say was, it's not about how many breaths you have, it's about what you do with those breaths that count. Another weird thing I had was, saw a fortune teller when I was 15. I should have been 16, but she didn't know, which maybe that says something about the level of fortune teller I saw. But she picked up on one thing. She said I was going to have pain in my neck and shoulder, which I have had, and I've had surgery actually on my shoulder, which is maybe a little bit coincidental. And the other one was self-doubt card. I've got to get rid of my self-doubt card. So I think both of those, other things as well along the way, but those two kind of affected the way you kind of look at things, or way I look at things. And it kind of makes you want to not waste what opportunity you've got, really. And I think some of the things I've done are hard. Some of the things I've done are pretty easy, but something a bit different. But I don't really like doing normal stuff. I like doing different things that not as many people know about or haven't really been before. And I don't know why, really, that bit. But I think challenging myself, just trying to prove to myself that I'm actually living, getting out there and living a bit, you know.
Yeah. So tell us about maybe 3 sort of ventures that you've done that you feel really, really challenged you and took you out your comfort zone.
Yeah, I've done very different for different reasons, in a way. I mean, probably the more challenge ones are actually the ones that weren't that far away. Like, you know, something that really challenged me. I did a coast to coast race across Scotland, which was kind of cycling and running, and that at the time in my mind and everything, I did loads and loads of training for that, and I did it for a cancer charity, as my wife's mum passed away with cancer just before I did that, and so that kind of resonated. That was kind of quite hard, and I found that quite mentally tough to finish it. And when I did finish it, I had a bit of a blub at the end, if you like, as well, because of the relief of finishing it. But some of the harder ones that I've done, I mean, I did a 100-mile ice skate down a frozen lake in Mongolia. That was remote. It was kind of miles away from anywhere, really. And that was hard because it's in such a huge expanse. Like, it's 100 miles long, but it's probably 20 miles across, 30 miles across. And at some point in time, you cannot see anyone else or anything else other than this lake and the mountains around it. There's no one else you can see at all. There's no sign of life. And when you fall over and splat on the ice at a decent pace, it obviously hurts. And so that was kind of quite mentally difficult to carry on going.
Where did you have the idea to do that? Where did that come from? That's so random.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit, if I spot something or see something advertised, I'm quite an easy sell on some of these things. So I saw it advertised as a company called Rat Race that I've done a lot of the stuff with. I've done maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 different things with. And they advertised this as one of their new kind of bucket list trips. It was their first one they've ever done. that kind of thing. So I thought, yeah, that's for me. I'm gonna do that. And ice skating obviously isn't really something that I've not really done before. I mean, I've obviously been as I was a kid, a couple of times.
Really hard. It's so hard to ice skate.
And bear in mind, this ice isn't flat. It's not as daft as it sounds. It's not dead flat like an ice rink. It's got holes in it, and it's got ditches and massive, huge kind of raised. Raised kind of areas that like that. So that was on the lake in Mongolia. So you can see there that kind of just behind me, it's all broken up. It's all, you've got to get across that. And
how do you get across that on ice skates?
Well,
how did you do it?
Yeah, the ice skates. It depends how in a rush you're going to be. If you're not in a rush, then these particular ice skates. They've got a clip on it, so right at the toe of the boot, like a cross-country ski. You unclip it, and you can actually take the ice skate bit off the boot. So you could do that. You could unclip it and kind of walk over it with some, you'd have some crampons with you as well in case. Because there was plenty of areas like that, and worse than that you couldn't get across. You couldn't skate it. Or you could take your life in your own hands, because doing that was a bit of a faff. So we had some poles with metal, just a normal trekking pole with the metal kind of bit, if you like, on the bottom. So if you got your poles in the right kind of place, you could kind of get over it. And for that kind of particular one, if I came across that kind of thing that was behind me there, I probably would have not bothered unclipping, and I'd have probably used my poles to kind of try and get over it. But I fell over a lot.
I mean, the scenery is breathtaking in that photo.
Yeah, amazing, yeah.
Do you take in a lot of the scenery, or are you just concentrating on staying alive?
No, I tried to, for sure, because in all these kind of things, like I've done a few events, running or whatever, cycling, and if you don't take in the surroundings, it can quickly kind of get you down. And if that's all you think about is how hard it is, then that's just going to get you more down. So actually almost taking a breather and having a look around at what's around you is what you've almost got to do. Otherwise you'll go mental, you'll go crazy. But that particular place in Mongolia, I mean, I'm not a spiritual kind of person really, but that was certainly something special. I mean, it's a sacred lake, and all the locals, you're not allowed to leave anything on it or do anything on it, rubbish wise, or go to the loo on it, for example. You're not allowed to, because it's against their thing. It's a sacred place, and you did feel that. It's just weird.
Where did you go to the loo then?
Well, I got lucky because we camped. This took 4 days or 5 days to do it, and so at the side of the lake we had a movable kind of campsite, and we stayed in these big gers, the big Mongolian circular kind of tents. So there was a team of people that went and set those up in front of us every day. So I got lucky. I actually didn't need to go to the toilet on the lake, but other people did. And let's just say there was buckets and plastic bags involved.
Great.
Yeah, we'll leave that there.
It's always the first thing I think about. If we're going to do an adventure or go anywhere, I think, where can I go to the toilet? It's a very important factor.
It is, yeah. And the Husky one was no different to that. The Husky Expedition I did a 300-kilometer one of those across Norway, Finland and Sweden, and that was the same. You just had to deal with it, really.
Do what you got to do.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, just to show you just to try and give you an idea of how big these bits of ice were. So that was, again, like a huge chunks of ice that you could have. I mean, I was walking there, you can see. And the little flag is actually the only thing. That's the only thing you've got to know you're in kind of roughly the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Goodness.
Yeah, crazy.
Matt, does your wife worry about you?
Yeah, I think so. My mum and dad as well do, probably more than my wife. But all my wife ever really says is, come come home in one piece. And
Yeah.
actually, I nearly on that particular one, that Mongolia one, I sprained my ankle really badly on day 3, and I probably shouldn't have carried on, but I in my head I was so convinced I was going to do it and I wasn't going to give up that I kind of didn't feel the pain until I'd finished, which is really quite weird. Shows how strong your mind can be, I guess.
Yeah. And that's what you said sort of in some of the pre-questions that I asked you. You said that you felt like your mental resilience is pretty strong.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you've always been quite mentally resilient anyway, or is it something that's really sort of grown along the way?
A bit of both, I think. I think the more things you do, you realise that you can. If I hadn't tried things, or you don't try new things, then you don't really get to know that you can. Whereas, I've never ice skated 100 miles across a lake until I'd been there, so I didn't know that I could do it, but I was pretty sure that in my head I was going to finish it. There was no way I wasn't going to do it, unless obviously something drastic happened. But the more you do it, you definitely build up more mental ability of dealing with things. But again, a lot of the time it's dealing with the anxiety levels of it. Like before going there, I had all sorts of questions to try and answer. I wanted answers to. It could be something really daft, like what am I going to carry my water in so it doesn't freeze? Because it was minus 20, 24, so what am I going to carry that in? How am I going to get it, from my bag to my mouth, without having to stop all the time? And so the more questions you get answered, the better my head is at that point in time.
Yeah.
I may not have quite answered that the way you wanted, but I can't quite remember the initial part.
I'm sort of curious about, do you sort of train your mind, but is there something you do regularly to train your mind so that when you go on these adventures you're more prepared? So obviously you just said you ask the right questions, so you set it up so you feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
But is there anything else you do to keep your mind, because it is so easy for people to just stay in their comfort zone, that's just easy, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely times as well, like on the Mount Tubcall trip, we were climbing up. I may as well go on with the theme. I've changed the picture again. So that's on the way to Mount Tubcall. In the distance there's the top, and I was quite worried about that, not because of the actual physical distances, because actually it wasn't that long a walk, but the height of that, you start getting problems after 3,000 meters with altitude sickness if you're going to have any problems. So I was really worried about that, mainly because of my mental strength. So actually it was going to be an opposite worry, because I was worried that if I did feel ill, I wasn't going to stop. So I'd almost counteracted the mental strength into actually being a problem. What I didn't want to happen was get near the top, feel really ill, pounding headache, dizzy, that kind of thing. That no one else may not have spotted that, but I would know it. And would I tell someone? So would I tell someone that I felt bad, and would I give up the goal of getting to the summit if I felt bad? So I was worried about that. So again, I managed that in a different way, where I actually told the organizer, made it pretty clear that I was worried about the height change and going to that height. I got some medication from the docs for altitude sickness, and I knew exactly where it was in my pack, so I could get it in seconds if I needed it. So I managed that little bit as well. But I'd also, because I'd told them, he knew that I was a bit concerned about it, and he would probably take a bit of more of a look at me at doing it. So I'd kind of shared that worry in a way. And I'd said from the outset, if I don't get up to the top, it's not a big deal. I'm going to just see the view on the way, So I'd tried to kind of tell myself it wasn't all about getting to the summit. that it was about the journey. And I mean, the views you can see there on the thing, that was nowhere near the top, and you can see what kind of views you get to see. And so there's plenty to see on the way. I just tried to tell myself the summit wasn't the end, be all and end all.
That's really interesting. So it's almost like you've trained yourself to push through pain to the point that you could potentially damage yourself. So you've got to really watch at that point where you've got to say enough.
But again, the only time that I knew, the only reason I know that is by doing the different things that I've done. Like Mongolia, I really, I hurt my ankle pretty bad. It was puffed up, and thankfully I had a load of ice there that I could put on it after the day.
Yeah, right. You're in the best place.
Yeah, I honestly did. I got this massive chunk this big, and just put my ankle on it after the day. But the next day I walked 35 kilometers on that leg, because I couldn't skate because my ankle was that bad. So I walked it the 35 kilometers.
Gosh,
yes,
even the mental ability it must take to push through that pain.
Yeah, I don't know what it I think it's just sheer kind of, my mind. I've told myself I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do it. But again, it can work either way. But I did another rat race actually, Man versus Lakes it was called, up in the Lake District. So it was an ultra marathon. I'd never done an ultra marathon before. I'm not built for an ultra marathon kind of physique at all, but I fancied doing it, and it was 55 kilometers. And again, the day after, my feet were all it was blisters, and I just could hardly walk. But again, I didn't feel that at the time. I just kind of had that vision of doing it. But what wound me up about that race actually in particular was that people were there. It was an adventure marathon. So the difference is that you don't just run or walk. You have things like obstacles. We had to swim in the lakes in the Lake District, like round an island and under things and over things, and obstacles to go through. And some people were missing that out, so they would make the cut-offs, because on these races you have cut-off times you have to get from which place to which place, obviously, so they can manage their safety team. And people were missing them out. I was like, I couldn't not do it. That was part of the race, and they told me that I've got to do that, so I'm going to do it. If I'd have missed that out and finished, I mean, one of the things I always say to myself when it gets hard is, I've got two things I use. One of them is, how am I going to feel tomorrow if I give up today? And that always kind of isn't a great feeling. So quickly bounce that back up with, how am I going to feel when I pass that finish line, or when I've completed it? How am I going to feel then? And if I've done it properly, if I've done all of it, and it's like very positive, kind of nice feeling. So it's really easy to kind of get into that. There's other ones that I've used as well, where you kind of, it's a Ranulph Fiennes one. I'm sure you've heard of Ranulph Fiennes, Polar Explorer and all sorts of stuff.
I haven't, no.
No, not really.
No, I'm not very good at remembering names. I don't remember names.
He's South Pole, North Pole, you name it. He's done all sorts of stuff, and he's kind of known, if you like, as one of the best, the greatest explorers of all time, kind of thing. And yeah, so you maybe Google him and you'll find his name pop up. But one of the things he does is he imagines that his two most prominent people in his life are stood watching him do it. So they stood behind him as he's doing these challenges, and would they be pleased to see him stop, or would they be pleased to see him give in? That kind of thing. So mentally, you've got that background behind it as well.
All the things you just said, they're such great things to use in anything, really, isn't it? Not just sort of adventures like that, but just life circumstances, really.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, it can be useful in a lot of different ways, that's for sure. Or just breaking it down, it helps. Breaking it down into segments rather than. If I looked at that 55-kilometer race, for example, and thought, oh my God, 55 kilometers, whereas as it happened, it had certain sections to it. so I could break it down. Right, first section, second section. So yeah.
Manageable chunks.
Exactly that. Yes, exactly that.
Now, Matt, I know that you keep a log in this black book
Yeah.
of your adventures. So tell us a little bit about the purpose of this black book. I think it's such a cool idea.
Yeah, I mean, there's just recently actually, I've kind of got other reasons for it now as well, which have kind of been cropping up. Like the reason initially was that I didn't feel my memory was as good as it could do, but also when my granddad passed away, there was a couple of things that I'd never heard about before. He'd never spoken of it at all. So whether he'd forgotten that or whether he'd chosen not to tell us, obviously we don't know, we'll never know. But I wanted to remember everything, little or small, that I'd done that I was proud of. So I started writing these things in the book. It's only a normal address book, so A to Z. So rather than names and addresses in the A to Z, I've got things attached to each letter. So I'll turn to a letter and mostly there's something in against each letter. But after that point, I mean, fairly recently, I don't know whether this is actually anything bad or not, but I've been known in our house, probably because we're in lockdown more, that if I'm coming up with a sentence and I can't think of the word, there's particular words in sentences, normally the most important word, that I can't remember. So I just come out with whatever's in my head. So it might be, can you go and get me the blue tack when it's not blue tack, or something I'm trying to think of, and I'll just come out with whatever words in the head. So it's a little bit funny, but also you kind of start thinking, well, actually, why can't I remember some of these words? So I've kind of got in the back of my mind that, I don't know, maybe there's something a little bit more sinister going on there. But anyway, if I write everything in my book, I'm not going to remember. I can remember it.
Yeah.
But more to the point as well is that if I'm having a particular day where I do feel down, I'm a pretty positive person normally. But if I want a bit of time where I'd look through it and turn to a page, I'll remember something by reading it, and you're straight back to that time when it happened. And it's pretty unusual to not kind of get those feelings come with it as well. So yeah, that's the kind of idea of it, really. And
I thought it was a lovely idea because, similar to you, I keep a moments diary. So I have a little where I just write, there's a special moment in the day, I just write that, oh, that made me laugh, and like you say, you read back through, and if you're in a bit of a funky headspace, and you're like, oh, I remember that moment, and moments that you just forget, wouldn't you? Like you, I'm pretty forgetful as well, worryingly so.
There's things as well that I'll remember something to go in the book that happened years ago, because I travelled around the world with my now wife in 2000, and so there's things that we did then that just keep coming to me as well, that I think, oh, I've got to put that in the book, and then I'll forget it again really quickly, and I'll be trying to think what it was, and I just can't get it out of my head. So I need to carry it with me. Maybe I need a smaller version or a digital version.
Like a little miniature one.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, I'm going to fire off 10 questions now.
All right.
And just answer them as quick as you can.
Okay.
The first one is, what's been your favourite moment of today so far?
I think having someone that does something similar is good, and seeing the kind of the benefit of trying to live life more adventurously, should we say, or get things in the moment.
Okay. Your favourite nature spot?
I like a lot of places. Most of them tend to be in Wales. One of them, the top of the Cadair Idris, there's a lake. There's a mountain called Cadair Idris near northern, near Snowdonia. There's a lake there that's nearly halfway up, and I wild camped there the one night, and it was amazing. But other than that, it would have to be some of the coast around Tenby, around Pembrokeshire.
Okay.
That's my favourite.
What are you most grateful for at the moment?
Most grateful for time with the family. You don't spend a lot of time together generally, or we don't, because kids are at school and whatnot. That obviously has its challenges as well, and we do get under each other's feet a fair bit, but it's nice to kind of share a bit more time with them as well.
Okay. Your favourite hot drink?
Coffee, gotta be coffee.
Coffee. Best piece of advice you've ever had?
Oh, I wrote this one down because I thought this might come up.
It was the fortune teller, wasn't it?
That was it. Yes. Definitely get rid of the self-doubt card. I've been trying to do that as long as I possibly can, really.
Yeah. A standout person from your life and why?
Yeah, there's a few people. I guess really my grandparents and parents are primarily the ones that stand out. Role models as we went along. They're really worked hard all their life and didn't really ask for anything in return, and just got on with it really. And that's kind of what role model I hope, kind of worth ethic and whatnot that I've tried to carry on with.
Okay. A standout film?
There was two. We've got Stand By Me and the Goonies.
Yay, Goonies!
Classics. Yeah. Now the reason that both of those I think have similarities, and they both kind of fit with the venture just out your front door kind of thing, where they both say in the movie, I think, where it's all really normal, it's all really boring place, especially in the Goonies, nothing ever happens here kind of thing. And then they step outside, go somewhere they've not been before, off their doorstep, and they have the adventures that they're going to have. Obviously, Stand By Me's got a little bit of different connotations with it, but it's a similar kind of thing. They'd not been outside and camped and visited that particular place before, and it's about an adventure that they decided to have and went with, and it all unravelled from there. So yeah, they're my two really.
I haven't seen Stand By Me, so
Yeah,
I think I'm going to have to watch it.
Yeah, it's quite different to the Goonies. They, without wanting to sound morbid, their reason of the trip is they have heard that someone fell off a bridge or got killed by this bridge, and they decide to, as kids, there's 4 or 5 of them, they decide to hike from their house to wherever this place is, and they have all sorts of like campfire stories and things that happen to them along the way. Yeah, it's quite good.
Okay, I'll check it out. Standout book and why?
Book. I read lots of non-fiction, and listen to a lot of non-fiction as well on the apps and things. But until you actually start reading a lot, there's loads of similarities. Like on some of the non-fiction, you're kind of reading it or listening to it, thinking, yeah, that's what I do as well. And it's kind of, not that I would think that that's anything special, but that there's loads of people that do all sorts of crazy stuff. And I'm not suggesting that people do with what I'm trying to say to people, that they don't, the adventure doesn't have to be a crazy thing. It can be something quite normal. It's just something out of the ordinary. But Megan Hine, The Hard Way, was a really good book. She's a kind of adventurer and expedition leader, and just the way she put things and how she described things and how she deals with people along the way is really, really interesting. It's really good.
Okay. A song that you love?
There's loads. Again, I struggle to kind of pigeonhole this one, but one actually, I was driving, literally went to, where did I go? Went to the shops, I think, yesterday in the car, and I hadn't primed this. It just came on my phone, the Detectorists song. I don't know if you've seen the Detectorists, it's a BBC programme with Mackenzie Crook in.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, no.
Yeah, they're basically two very random kind of ordinary guys that have got metal detectors, and metal detectors are called Detectorists, and it's about their kind of how they hunt for their treasure. And the song it's a bit of a country style song, that kind of style type of music.
Good taste.
But Yeah, but it says about in the words, it says about how the treasure is there waiting for them to find, and it's just really nice music, and because of the way that the Tetris TV program is shot, it brings you straight back into, for me anyway, straight back into a big open green field, sunny, really nice weather, birds chirping. It brings me straight back into the way that was filmed.
Okay.
So that's why
And
that's
was it the Johnny Flynn? Is it Johnny Flynn?
yes, yeah, he
Johnny
sings
Flynn
it,
soundtrack. Yeah. I've heard a couple of his songs. Okay.
yeah.
And lastly, I'm going to give you a scenario, and then I want to sort of know
Okay.
what you would do in this circumstance. So you begin to feel quite anxious and a bit reactive, just not in a good headspace. We all get in them sometimes. What's the first thing that you do when you feel like that?
Stop, really. Stop what you're doing. Breathe deeper and longer. Normally, kind of anxiety brings a bit of fear with it as well. And the first thing you do when you're scared about something is and you kind of hold your breath. So nice long deep breaths, and then I actually try and kind of think about what I'm scared of. What am I scared of? What am I anxious about? And why is that going to hurt me? Or why is that going to be, why is it feeling in that way? To try and almost logically break it down, and then it might be, I don't know, let's just say it's a spider or something. So my 10-year-old is scared of spiders. So I've tried to say to him the other day, okay, so when was the last time that you got bit by a spider? Well, I haven't. So okay, right. So what is it that you're scared about? Is it how when they crawl on you? When was the last time? So if that was going to crawl on you now, what would it have to do? So well, it'll have to go really quick and jump on me or something. It's okay. So you're quicker than that, so you can move away from it. And so it's, what else don't you like about it? Well, it's got 8 legs. So, well, why is that going to hurt you? That it's got 8 legs. Try and break it down a little bit like that. Obviously, spiders are a bit different than maybe trouble with work or whatnot. But another way I try and do it is a lot of the time when you're anxious about something, it's because you care about something so much. In work, especially, where you kind of care so much about the outcome of what you're trying to achieve, that someone replying to you in the negative can get you back up really quite quickly. So I try and visualize it like a scale of 1 to 10. So 10 is death, 0 is absolutely laid back asleep. Exactly what problem is that level at the moment? And if it gets above 3, it's pretty unusual. And then once you kind of pigeonhole that, well, that's a 3. You can kind of start to maybe calm yourself down a little bit and kind of realize that maybe it's not actually that much of a bigger problem. Mm-hmm. If it is a problem and it's a 9 or a 10, then got to do something about it pretty quick. But that's never happened yet. So.
It's crazy, isn't it? How like in that moment you're like, it's going to be a 10, and like you say, then you break it down, and actually it's like visualizing the worst case scenario.
It's not as easy at all as what I would say it is either. I know that, I get that.
Yeah.
But trying to kind of think about the different things. But I use this one for expedition wise. Like I've seen it happen with one particular guy on a trip that we were on, the Husky trip, where he got so worked up after the first day that he couldn't think straight. He was just seeing this kind of wall, if you like a mountain in front of him, like that behind me, really, where he was looking at it as a mountain and it would be impossible to climb. Whereas you try and pull yourself away from it and look at it like it's a map. So you're looking at it over the top, and then you can start to pick out the ways you can get there. And then you, like you said earlier, you can start to break it down, manageable bits.
Yeah.
And when it's a map, that's so much easier to do rather than looking at the mountain in front of you. Mm-hmm. So, I know it's not easy though. It's not easy. And And that makes it sound really easy. Yeah, I know it's not.
It's a good
So,
system, though. I like it. It's a good system.
But the way I figure it is, the more systems I've got, one of them might work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always tell myself, I'm like, right, what is the worst possible outcome here? You know, what is the worst possible outcome? And if that happened, would you be okay? Yeah, probably you'd get through it, wouldn't you? So
Yeah,
you have to
it's
get
like
through
heights,
whatever.
isn't it? Walking at heights when you're on a mountain or something, and I says, "Oh, I'm scared of heights." Yeah, I am as well. But what's going to physically move my feet from here to off the edge? Nothing's going to do that unless I actually walk over the edge. And fear is actually good. Fear is a good thing. Otherwise, we'd be walking in front of cars.
Yeah.
We'd be chopping it with a knife like this from this height with a knife when we're chopping the carrots or whatever, but we don't, because fear is there stopping us, telling us that's not a good idea. So that's actually a good thing as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. There's some really good stuff in there.
That's all right.
All right. So one more thing before we say bye, and
Okay,
that is, do you have a challenge for the listeners?
Yes. I would like listeners to kind of think what was the last thing that they did as an adventurous thing that they've done, and what was the last new thing that they've tried. And if that's quite some time ago, to think about what new things they can try. And it's not maybe as easy at the moment because of the lockdown thing, but even if it's the case of looking at a map, I mean, there's an OS Ordnance Survey Maps app that you can get, and you can have a look at where all the footpaths are near you. So you can literally have a look on there. If there's nowhere you've been before, go and have a look. Obviously, if you're in a city, it might be a bit different, but walk down somewhere where you've never been before and see what you find at the other side. I've done that maybe in the lockdown period 5 or 6 times in the last 9 weeks, and I definitely want to go back to every one of them. It's and the kids do as well. The kids have I've got an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old, and it's hard getting them out of the house away from the video games, but when we do, they say, "Oh my god, this place is amazing, can we come back here tomorrow or the day after," or whatever. So it works, and then the more you do these things, new things, the more likely you are to think, actually doing new things is fine, it's good. I'm going to try that now. I'm going to try that now. I'm going to try that now. And it just snowballs and snowballs. And the more that you do these things, I went from never running a 5K or a 10K ever before to doing kind of a few marathons and ultra marathon. And I don't call myself a runner I wouldn't call myself that at all, but you do it in stages, and it doesn't have to be difficult to do those kind of things. So yeah, get out there, do something different.
Yes, and then like you say, it will just become habitual. Then you'll just keep doing new things, and like you say, even if they're just small things, it doesn't have
You
to.
never know what. Yeah, the big thing really is you don't know what's there until you go and have a look.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a walk. It could be anything, like a new hobby, or you might love it. You might be great at it, like golf. I mean, I work in golf, but a lot of people, it's not really a game where you can just pick it up and do it straight away. So maybe not as great an example, but you might pick it up. And for me, I'm not necessarily a perfectionist, but you can't beat golf. You can't